Hello, my name's Jason from Body121Fitness. These videos are supposed to be an alternative resource for people who don't want to read on the website, just want to watch a video. So without further ado, this video relates to the 4 golden rules of resistance training. And what am I talking about there? Right, basically the number one reason that people stop going to the gym above anything else is because they don't get the results that they wanted. And 60%, this is a well-known statistic, 60% of people who are new to the gym, for example, will drop out within 3 months. And it is because they don't get the results they want. There are 4 golden rules to employ when you are in the process of resistance training or weight training. If you don't employ these basic rules, and they sound very basic, admittedly, however, I've trained at around 100 gyms across the country and abroad, and on any given day, I would say in the gym that I would be able to point out at least 50%, but I would say more likely 70% of the people in there who are cutting some corner. And the point is that what you want to try and achieve is the maximum return for your effort that you put in. And unfortunately, there are so many misconceptions with fitness and how to exercise effectively that it's difficult to actually achieve that. So if I just basically, one of the most common misconceptions, and it varies from particularly to what sex you are. I mean, if you're a man, it's my understanding or experience that men believe the faster they can go up the weight range, the faster that they're going to get some form of development. Now that sort of makes sense. You know, you can see there's some sort of twisted logic to that. But it only makes sense if you exercise properly. Because if you start cutting the corners in order to go up the rep range, then you won't progress. So basically, you need to make sure that you are, with complete discipline, employing the 4 golden rules of resistance training at all times. And if you do that, then the effort you put in, 100% effort you put in, you will get as close to 100% return as possible. And I would point out that if you miss one of these rules out, then you're going to have a substantial reduction in terms of your results. If you miss 2 of the rules, then you're going to have an even higher drop off in terms of your results, to the point that you may not even really see very much happening at all. And it's very easy to do. The golden rules are, the 4 golden rules are: perfect technique, full range of movement, intensity, i.e. the speed of the exercise or the tempo, and effort level. They're the 4 golden rules. If you employ those 4 rules properly, and I'll give you loads of examples in a minute, so you'll understand properly, then you'll be getting the most out of what you're putting in. If you miss 1 or 2 of them, and most people, if you look around the gym, you'll see it's a combination of cutting the corners. It's not necessarily one glaring rule that they're not doing, although that is often the case as well. But it's more a bit lost here, a bit lost there, and a bit lost here, which cumulatively adds up to a lot lost in terms of what your potential gains could be. So when I say technique, range of movement, intensity, effort, what am I talking about? Right, technique. Basically, if you don't employ the proper technique relative to the specific muscle group that you're trying to train, then you're not training that muscle group. So if you're doing the lat pull down, for example, where basically the lat pull down is the exercise where you grip it from above. You can't see my hands on the video, I noticed, so you just have to, you know, I could sort of hold them here like this, I suppose. Actually, it's probably better to hold them up here. If you're doing the lat pull down and you're pulling the bar, where you pull the bar down towards your chest and you touch the bar on your chest and then return up. Concentric phase, eccentric phase. Basically, as you pull the bar down, if you're curling forward, in order to get that bar down at the final, the final third of the positive phase, i.e. when you pull down, that means you're engaging your abdominals in order to complete the exercise, because your lats and your biceps and your arms don't have the strength. So what you're doing is you're compensating by leaning forward or crunching forward as if you're doing a sit-up in order to pull the bar down to get the bar down. This means that you're using your abdominals instead of your biceps, latissimus dorsi, and associated synergistic or fixator muscles. Instead of just your biceps, latissimus dorsi, and synergist muscles. Synergist muscles are basically muscles which are involved in stabilization or helping with the movement, but not the prime movers. The prime movers would be the biceps in this case, the latissimus dorsi, which is basically the wings on the back. So what you should do is you should bring the bar down, maintain position, chest up, touch the bar on the chest, and then return up to starting position, and not be crunching over at all. Another really, really common one is, in terms of technique, is people who do bicep curls, where basically they stand. A bicep curl should be like this. If I can get it in the camera. A bicep curl, just drop down slightly, is this. Just off full extension and up, right through to the top and back down slowly. Okay? 1 and 2. This is how you should be doing your bicep curl. And that includes how stable my upper body is. No movement at all. Just working the bicep. Full extension, full flexion, full extension. And while I'm standing here, I may as well show you the speed of exercise tempo. You can change the tempo of your exercise quite dramatically to vary the type of training stimulus that you're giving yourself, and that's a good idea. Because you need to change your training stimulus approximately every 3 weeks, because your body will positively adapt for a certain period, but then once that period is over, it's normally about between 6 and 8 sessions, then it will no longer positively adapt. So you need to then change the training stimulus, and one way you can do that to a degree is to change the tempo of the exercise. I'm not going to go into the advanced timing methods of completing a resistance exercise like a bicep curl in any detail, but you should, just as a standard rep, be coming up on a count of 1 and lowering on a count of 2 or 3. So 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, 3. Full extension, 1 flexion, and 1, 2, 3, down to full extension. This is the correct basic tempo for resistance training. You can also do like a power reps, if you like, basically, which are more explosive and then really slow on the way down, on the negative phase. Yeah, really, really powerful and then really slow on the negative phase. Power, really slow on the, that's an advanced training method. And different to what you normally do, and as such, it will utilize the fibers slightly differently. More fibers will come into play that aren't normally used. You'll use different types of fibers. Explosive energy is all about type 2B fibers, which are your strongest, fastest reacting fibers. And as such, you'll then get, if you're new to it, i.e. you haven't been doing it for 3 weeks, you're then going to get a nice positive adaptation to it upon resting properly and eating. So that's basically intensity, which I've sort of thrown in there as well, where basically you are, particularly the cardinal sin, if you like, in the gym, which you see absolutely everywhere, is people who will do an exercise and then drop the weight. When I say drop the weight, I mean lower the weight just slow enough so it doesn't make a crashing sound, but not actually resist, work against the resistance on the way down. And that means that you are missing 50% of each rep. You're much stronger on your negative cycle, which is the release. You need to be working that as you release the rep. As you, on the negative phase of the rep, you need to be working the negative phase. So you need to be holding it and resisting it on the way down. Why do people not do that? Why do, I would say everybody, but it's almost everybody. Why does everybody, I'll say everybody, but that's a bit unfair, just drop the weight and then up and then drop and then up and then drop and then up? Because it's a lot easier. However, if you train properly, yeah, you're basically working the muscle more effectively. That includes standing, in terms of the bicep curl, as I'm standing on video now, no upper body movement, full range of movement. This is the full range, just off a straight arm, full extension, up, full flexion, and 1, 2, 3 on the way down, and 1, 2, 3 on the way down, and 1, 2, 3 on the way down. Oh, and just to show you what people do is, instead of doing this, which I've just shown you here, the proper 1, 2, 3, they'll do this. In terms of poor technique, which is what I was originally talking about, they'll do this. They'll do the weight so heavy that they lock the arms and they start engaging everything else, glutes, back, to get the weight up. So this is the classic here. And this means you're not actually working the bicep. You may be lifting a heavier weight, but you're not actually effectively working the bicep. So the bicep, although you're doing a heavier weight, will not get any stronger or larger. No strength or size gain. The other thing is, you'll notice that it's about range of movement, which is the second golden rule. You've got technique, you've got range of movement, you've got intensity, and you've got effort. The technique I've just described, range of movement, is obviously gone out the window here as well doing this. Range of movement, this is the range of movement. Just off full extension, full flexion, down, negative phase, just off full extension. This is working the bicep effectively across the broadest range. The bigger the range, the more muscle fibers you'll be incorporating in the exercise, the better the development, and also your body specifically gets stronger across the range that you use. So if you've got the bad habit, I'm going to sit down again. If you've got the bad habit of cutting the range of movement in order to be able to manage these heavier weights, a classic would be a shoulder press. Now, I wouldn't be doing it as narrow as this, my arms would be out more, but you can't see my hands in the video, unfortunately, which isn't ideal. Oh, that might be a bit better. So basically, people who do a heavier weight on a shoulder press here, like this, up and then down to here, up, it's a lot easier to do a shoulder press from here and up. That's almost half a rep. This is 50% of the proper range of movement. The proper range of movement for a shoulder press, i.e. to work the deltoids, the shoulder muscles, and the triceps, effectively, i.e. or most effectively, i.e. incorporate the most muscle fibers for the exercise, and then by default create the biggest strength and size gains, whatever or just develop, let's just call it development because it depends what rep range you're doing. But to get the best development, you want to incorporate the most fibers possible. This is 50% of range of movement. Therefore, you're incorporating 50% of the muscle fibers that you could possibly be. This is easier than this, which is a proper shoulder press, full range of movement, all the way up, all the way down. If you're doing dumbbells, they should touch your shoulders, and then up, and down, and up, and down, and up, and down. That's the full range. So you've got perfect technique you need to employ. You've got perfect and full range of movement. Incidentally, that's personal to you. People are shaped differently. Whatever your body shape is. People have long legs, short upper body, very long arms, very long legs, short arms, short legs. Whatever's comfortable for you in terms of range of movement. So work across the maximum range that you can manage that's comfortable, basically. But make sure that you always work across that range. And if you do that, and you employ perfect technique, which means that you're always working the muscle that you're intending to work. Therefore, that's the muscle that will benefit. That's the one you're going to get, or that group will be the group that develop. As opposed to incorporating other muscles because you can't manage the weight to maintain the technique 100% perfectly. If you find yourself, which again is, let's call it 80% of the time, see people doing this. If you get to the difficult few reps of whatever range you're doing endurance, 20 to 25 reps, you're doing hypertrophy, where basically it's 8 to 12 reps, you're doing strength training, 1 to 6 reps. If on the last, if on the reps which are difficult, your technique goes out the window and you start throwing, like I say, lat pull down and you're crunching your stomach down to get the bar down. Bicep curl, you're using your back. If you start incorporating other muscles to help you, assist you in finishing the exercise and the target on the muscles that you're trying to target, then you're not going to get that benefit to that particular group that you are trying to target. What you should do is never ever do that rep where you're straining and that you're throwing absolutely everything into this to try and finish this rep or these couple of reps, where you're using every other muscle that you have other than the one that you should be, because you've reached fatigue, the weight's too heavy for you. You are so much better off in stopping the instant that you start to deviate from perfect technique, full range of movement and speed of exercise. You're so much better to stop right there. Don't go into this sort of straining, wobbling around, throwing your body around, trying to get some body weight underneath something. Just do not do that rep or those reps. Stop before that. As soon as you start to deviate or you feel that you're not going to be able to maintain 100% perfection, then if you want to carry on, a very effective way to train is to drop the weight, i.e. grab a lighter dumbbell, grab a lighter barbell straight away, or if you're on a machine which has got a rack of weights, just knock the pin down 1 or 2 plates and then carry on with perfect technique to complete whatever selected rep range you're working in. That way, instead of you going through this, which also is, people will be quite prone to injury. It's when you're struggling and throwing everything at it, you lose control, you're not stabilizing yourself properly. You know, you're more likely to injure yourself in those few reps. You're certainly not going to be developing the muscle that you're supposed to be developing effectively. You're so much better off stopping way before that. And if you want to, knocking the weight down, and then you can work into your fatigue in a controlled manner, where basically you are still employing perfect technique, full range of movement, intensity, the speed of exercise, and effort level. If you do that, you're still going to be developing your targeted muscle, even though you're fatigued, as effectively as you can. So technique, I've sort of explained. You know, I've showed you the lat pull down, the bicep curl, which are just the, you know, the real standout ones. Range of movement, I've explained with the shoulder press. If you're doing your shoulder press from here, which is rather than down here, your strength will be here. And if I see people do this with heavier weights, like a half rep, and if you've always trained that way or started to because you've gone up the weight range more quickly than you are capable in order to maintain proper technique, range of movement, and intensity, speed of exercise. If you're working in a half rep range like this, and I say to you, okay, do the same exercise, but this time with the same weight, put the full range. I'd like to see you work over the full range. So drop the weights right down to your shoulders, all the way up. A nice 3, 2, 1 on the drop, and up, and 3, 2, 1, and up. If you do that, I guarantee you can't do the same amount. You will be amazed at how weak you are down here because you've stopped training the full range. So the muscle is weak right here. You need to work across the full range of movement because it gives you the best functional strength. The best strength across the full range of movement, which is what you want. Not half, not part of the range. So from a functional perspective, it's the best thing to do. From a developmental perspective, it's the best thing to do. The third thing, intensity, as I briefly showed you on the bicep curl as I was standing up, is the classic is people just drop the weights. So you'll do the lat pull down, and instead of 1, 2, 3 as you let the bar come up, you'll be pulling it down and then up, pulling the bar down, up. No workout, no resistance on the negative. Again, why do people do this? Bicep curl the same, they drop it, put it up, drop it, everything flies, in, drop, in, drop, positive, drop the negative, positive, drop the negative. Because it's a lot harder to resist on the negative phase, on the opposite movement. The positive phase on the fly, bringing the hands together, the negative, releasing the weight. It's a lot harder to resist it. That's, as you resist it on the negative stroke, you're overloading the muscles. Therefore, you're going to get a positive adaptation. Positive adaptation, the way resistance training works is, you go to the gym, you apply your specific training stimulus, whatever rep range you're working in, an advanced training method. You do that. In the process of that, you overload the targeted muscle groups, theoretically, as long as you're doing the technique correctly. Yeah, the muscles actually tear at like a micro level, and then overnight they will repair when you're sleeping and you've fed them. If you've had a, you know, if you're eating a balanced diet, protein, carbohydrates, vegetables, fruit, then basically you will repair overnight, and the muscle will repair and become, the fibers will become thicker, stronger. You also start to develop, in terms of the motor neurons, the actual, what's the word? The actual, I I can't think of the nervous system. In terms of your nerve control, you'll develop more, or first of all, better coordination from the brain. Most beginners, their development in the early few weeks, they will quite quickly go rushing up the weights and be able to do it properly. That's not because they've suddenly become super, you know, they're basically making strength gains at a phenomenal rate. It's because they learn to coordinate the muscles better. And because when you first do something, you have to coordinate a lot of different things: stabilization, the prime movers, the synergistic muscles, the fixators, which stabilize your joints. It's a lot for the brain to deal with initially, and it's the process of becoming more competent at that gives you your gains. Learning how to and there is a physiological development. You'll actually develop more motor neurons around the muscle, which means you'll be able to basically activate more muscle fibers. So there's sort of many different processes that are in play in terms of this positive adaptation. But the simplified way to look at it is you overload the muscle during your resistance training, and then at night when you're resting, subject to you resting and eating properly, your muscles will repair and grow. And that's called positive adaptation. The thing with that is that in terms of the training stimulus, your body only positively adapts for a reasonably short period. And that's another article. It's called Please Change Your Training Stimulus. Briefly, I'll just touch upon it, but you can then watch it or you can read about it. I haven't written it yet, but it's going to be up there very shortly. Basically, the body responds to your overload, to a training stimulus overload for a short period of time. Most people make the mistake of getting a certain result when they begin, which is great, very motivating, and then they continue doing the same thing. And what happens is the body stops responding. So what you need to do is you need to change your training stimulus. Now there's many different ways of doing that, but you need to do it. Most people just are not aware of that. And then if they are aware of it, they're not quite sure what to do, how to change it. So there will be another article and another video which gives you many different ways to do it. And the idea is you just keep changing your training stimulus, ideally something like every 3 weeks. This way your body's always reacting to fresh stimulus, and you'll be, you know, you'll be getting a continued progression. So the last of the 4 golden rules that I haven't talked about particularly is effort. The reason I haven't mentioned it is because it's really the least important of the 4. Because I think genuinely most people who go to the gym or exercise, do any sort of resistance training, you know, most people go and they put their heart into it. They put some effort into it. The reason I mention it is because there is a bit of a misconception, particularly with the ladies, that a certain amount of reps would just equates to working the muscle. It doesn't really matter what the weight is. So if you do 30 reps, it's 30 reps, and therefore you've just exercised, you know, and effectively worked that muscle. That's not true. There is a book, I can't remember the exact title. It's like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Mars, Men Are From Venus, or Men Are From Venus, Women Are From Mars. In terms of exercise prescription, there is no difference between men and women in terms of how you train. You have the same rep range parameters: endurance 20-25 reps, hypertrophy, which is size and strength, a blend of 8 to 12 reps, strength 1 to 6, possibly 8 reps, strength training. And as such, you know, as a woman, you should be doing exactly the same thing, training exactly the same way. And that means overloading the muscle. That means at the end of your set, you should have selected a weight where it's very difficult at the end and you're just managing to finish with perfect technique, full range of movement, and speed of exercise, intensity. For some people it's an adjustment because they're just not used to people who sometimes come to train, it's true of men and women, but basically acclimatizing to what real effort is an adjustment, and sometimes it just takes a little time. Most people just come and, you know, murder themselves straight away, unfortunately, but don't train very well. And the whole point of this 4 Golden Rules of Resistance Training article is, I see every day between 50 and 70% of the people in the gym who are wasting their effort to some degree. And what these 4 Golden Rules really equate to in real terms is, if you employ the perfect technique, if you employ the full range of movement, if you employ perfect speed or tempo of exercise, depending on what you're trying to achieve. I don't want to confuse you there. Just stick to the, if you're new to this, just stick to what I showed you. 1 second on the count of 1 on the positive phase, and 1, 2, 3 on the negative. That's fine. Stick with that. If you are incorporating perfect technique, full range of movement, speed of exercise, and putting the effort in, and most people do anyway, what that equates to in real terms is, when you go to the gym, you've been working hard for 6 weeks, you will have something to show for it. A considerable amount. If you've picked the correct exercises, which is another subject altogether, but if you've picked the correct exercises and you execute them, bearing these 4 Golden Rules of Resistance Training in mind, with discipline, and you're training 2 or 3 times a week, you will have a fantastic result. So this is the end of the video for the 4 Golden Rules of Resistance Training. There will be other videos in relation to the other articles I've written. This is the first one I've done. I'll probably get better at making them shorter and more concise and whatever, but I hope this was of some benefit. The website is www.Body121Fitness, that's the numbers 121 in the middle, .com. This is my YouTube channel, or the Body121Fitness YouTube channel. The website is linked from here, and you can go to the Google Plus page as well for more information. So you've got a variety of places to go. There's a lot of information on the website. On the YouTube channel, there is information that relates to some fitness articles. So I would recommend visiting the website. Thanks very much.